This video is called Friends Build Real Castle from Scratch with Simple Tools Only. This is a real thing. You love this channel? I think I showed this channel on stream, but like 5+ years ago. I've been subscribed to Kirsten, I don't know, like 14 years or something. Like, it's been a long time. She was on YouTube very early. I subscribed to her when she had like 100 subs. And I was really interested in tiny houses at the time, even though they don't exactly fit a person like me because I'm not very tiny. But yeah, she just does like interesting house or building videos. And she goes around the world and has like a pro camera and stuff. She has more subscribers than me now, so that's great. But yeah, her videos are definitely pretty variety. Anyway, so I watched this video, I don't know, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, whenever it came out, 17th, 5 days, 4 days ago. And it's really interesting. The main thing that I want you guys to kind of try to be mindful of is how much technology has changed up until very, very recently. Like very recently, technology has changed. And the differences in life for all of us. I thought that was really fascinating. Also, I have a personal interest in building things out of large rocks. Not that I've done that very much, but I think it's super cool. All right. Try to get the volume right. In a French forest 25 years ago, a team of master builders began building a medieval castle. That's what you're looking at. Using only the technology and materials of the Middle Ages. This is 180 kilometers south of Paris. This is Guedelon Castle.
So we're building a castle from scratch. This is a medieval castle. This is a castle that never really existed, but it's the type of castle that might have existed in this area in the middle of the 13th century.
I don't know if you can do tours or whatever here, but I think it'd be really cool to go and see.
But of course, what we've also done is to create a project in which we use the techniques that we used 600, 700, 800 years ago.
So you got like a blacksmith. Like this guy's making bread. This is bread, guys. This is crazy. I'm gonna try not to like.
But we're gonna go in through the main gate. So the castle's main gate has been freed up this season because it's been under construction for the last, well, since 2017. And you can see the tread wheel winch, which is mounted on the wall here. That was actually positioned in front of the main gate. So this is the first season that we've been able to go into the courtyard through the main gate.
And most of the videos are like pretty chill. They're not like slow paced, but they're pretty chill. So I should be able to give you guys my input without pausing too much.
Now, I think what I'm going to do is take you inside this tower and I'm going to show you the lifting machinery which we use.
I've been in castles like this, and it's really hard for someone 6'4" to go through the doors.
And as we walk, this central axle is going to turn, and that means that we can wind in this rope. So the rope goes up the central mast, around a pulley, up to the end of the jib, around a second pulley, and down, and then it's connected there to the cradle.
It's a hamster wheel for people. This is how you move things up that were heavy.
Oh, okay, it's ready to go. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
This is like, hey, that's fun. These people have been doing this for 25 years. This dude is swole AF, I guarantee it, okay? This guy can lift the fucking thing at this point.
Good job. So the masons, they bring up about 3 metric tons of weight every day.
This is not how we built our house.
We're building a castle, but of course saying that we're building a medieval castle doesn't mean anything because the medieval period lasts for 1,000 years.
How did they get out?
In 1,000 years of human
What?
history, things change enormously. So the difference
do you mean, get
between
out?
a wooden fort being built around the year 500 and a stone fortress in 1500, obviously they're worlds apart. Okay.
So yeah, the medieval period was really
when
long.
we began this project, we had to determine when we were building the castle. So we're interested in the 13th century, so the 1200s. And to be even more precise, we took 1 year as our start date. So when we began building, we said it was the year 1229, and each year we moved forward in history.
Castles approaching the end of the medieval, they had a lot of glass and stuff. They didn't look that much like the castles you imagine, like this one.
Stop. Merci beaucoup.
They're French.
So you're selecting specific rocks?
No, most of them, but we use those that they are like the less beautiful and the smallest one. So we recycle stone. Every stone have one place.
They have to use the pleb stones because even the pleb stones take tremendous
if we chose
effort.
This area, this specific area to build the castle, it's because this is where we find the largest deposit of sandstone in this area. So that meant that we knew we had enough stone to build the castle.
Basically, it's a pain in the fucking ass to move stones.
Ruggedness sandstone. It's a compression of sand over millions of years, and that produces a stone which is a sandstone, but it's an iron stone. It's got a really high iron content.
Here
this is 180 kilometers south of Paris.
Pretty large tools. So my job here, where the stone was extracted, I have to cut it to a different piece, to a different form. So to cut it, the stone, I make some hole.
Okay, this guy's English is actually very good, but he's French. Okay, so give him a break. He has a pretty strong accent. I'll go over some of the stuff he says because I'm actually really good about understanding people with accents, but I know a lot of people are not.
And here the hole, I'm going to use this coin like this, and after I have to hit very hard this coin, and when it's in tension, there is a shock right on the stone. If I have a bigger stone, I have to use more hole. So here in this stone I'm going to make 5 holes. I already make 3 here. So my job is just to hit over here like this. I follow the line and the stone cut it.
So he cuts stones by making holes, and he puts these little chisel-like things in the holes, and then he slaps them with a sledgehammer. And he does this for like 20 years.
So I have to play with all the coin. I can't hit the same coin over time because my shock are going to go the other side. So I make a right shock around the stone to cut it, and I repeat this job a lot of time.
Basically, there's very deliberate techniques to creating the shock in the stone to split it the way that he wants. You can't just slap that shit in non-stop.
This, I put it here to protect my hole. After I make this impression, and I can already hit him with the big hammer. So I use my ears. There is a different sound, piff, puff, poof. Piff is the sound the stone was very strong and I can cut it. Puff, we have a shock inside the stone, so it's going to separate. And took, the stone was ready to separate. So I have to use my ear. This is a game. If I have a lot of coin, it's very difficult to find the right place.
So he uses the acoustics of hitting the things to determine how it's going and what it needs to change.
And here the difficulty is I have to hit in not a good way. It's better for a quarryman to hit in this axe. If I hit like this, my back takes some shock. So I have to go slowly to not burst myself. So I have the movement to just go like this for a better hit. So after here, I go another way and I continue my job around the stone.
So he doesn't do it in a way that looks efficient because he has to protect his back because of the shock that goes into it otherwise.
Cube for the stone cutter, or sometimes just from the mason, I just do some big stone, large stone, or some stone like this, more right, more regular. just for the floor.
So this is work you've done over the past couple months?
Yeah, for 2 years. Yeah.
3 years here.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yes, every day I eat stone.
What you see in front of you there, that's 3 years of stone
No,
cutting.
you see, I use more of my brain, because it's not only muscle. If you use only muscle, you're going to break.
Just so we're clear, guys. Okay. Just the cutting of the stone. What you see on the screen there, that's 3 years. Okay. It's not you go to like Home Depot and pick up, a skid of cement blocks, cinder blocks. No. That's 3 years. Of literal back-breaking work. Literal back-breaking work.
And break your back. It's better to use brain, concentrate, write the stone, hit on the same place, the good place, and after it's better for you and for all of us.
And when they were building the original part of the castle, did they have more stonemasons because there's probably more need, or no?
Yes, for the beginning there are more people work here.
Okay.
So it's better for a quarryman to be 3. Because we have someone who make this hole, so just 1 person is okay. But after you have to cut it another time, and it's a job for 2 persons with another tools.
So early on in the castle construction, there were tons of workers, but now there's fewer.
My job was over the entrance. This is just me.
Okay.
But not all of us, because the castle was 25 years old and I have 21, so this is not possible.
How much of the castle came out of this spot?
From here, you have to go 4 or 3 meters up on my head, and this is all of this hole right behind you for this castle.
So he's saying that about 9 feet above where he's standing, it was full sandstone, and they used that sandstone in its entirety to build the castle. 3 meters is like 9.5 feet.
Hyper local.
Yeah.
What we've also done, by accident if you like, really over the last 25 years, is to create a project in which we are literally taking local materials and transforming them. So we're literally taking the materials from the quarry. They're quarried and either sent straight to the masons or to the stonemasons' lodge where they're given a specific geometric shape. We take oak from the forest to square up the beams which we need for the roof timbers, to make the bridges, the doors.
Yeah, guys, turns out wood, it doesn't naturally grow perfectly straight in cubic shapes. Who would have thought?
We also have sand on site. Here on the floor you can see the quarry sand which we find here. So this can be used in the mortar. We have clay in the forest floor, so that clay can then make roof tiles, floor tiles, and of course, very important in any construction project, water. So we've got nearly all the materials we need, which is why this area was chosen.
How common is that? Like, how common is it to find a place that has
Well,
that many
this is something that
raw materials, right?
This is something that we also ask ourselves. Obviously, this is the only castle we've ever built. But what we've been amazed at is how much this site provides us. Yes, we've got stone, yes, we've got wood, but we can also make 15 different colours just using the materials which we find here on site, and that's something we never expected.
This is really interesting because it really goes into the resourcefulness of it. You'll find that, like, you know how you think people who are like 60 years old are like boomers and they're just slow at everything, and us millennials, we have it so hard and all that shit. I mean, maybe there's some truth to that, but in terms of like being scrappy and resourceful and stuff, I mean, if you talk about a few hundred years ago, it's a whole different ballgame.
Obviously, there are materials that we buy in. For example, just here, we have the area where we make mortar. So the mortar that you can see prepared here on the boards, that's the glue which we use to bind the stones together, and it's lime based. You can just see here a lime kiln under construction. Now the white stones which are going to be burnt during the lime burn, that's limestone. We haven't got that here in our quarry, we buy that in. But even in the Middle Ages, if you didn't have all the materials you needed, then obviously you buy that in from other quarries. So we'll burn those blocks of stone. We'll then draw off all the water, all the CO2, because for 72 hours we'll bring that kiln up to 900 degrees Celsius, and during the burn we'll then draw off all the water, all the CO2, and we will obtain quicklime. So quicklime has been deprived of water. It has one thing that it wants to do, and that's absorb any water it comes into contact with. So when you plunge that into water, that's a process known as slaking, it produces heat, and the rock transforms into a putty. And it's the lime putty which we've mixed up here with sand and water.
Okay, so that's like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, okay. They basically created a giant oven to cook a rock for like several days to create a powder deprived of water that when you add water becomes sticky and glues rocks together. Okay. This process was invented before the science of chemistry was at all a science.
It's a non-hydraulic lime, which means it will dry very slowly, allowing all the stones in the castle to settle into position.
So here there's a wall, something like this. Here we have the ancient level, so the middle, and the middle, and it's really precise. So when I go here, when I go there, really simple. The Egyptians use it. And it's more precise.
I didn't actually know this, but yes, this is an Egyptian level. So this technology is like 4,000+ years old.
Than the level actual.
Oh, really? Than the modern level?
Yeah, because the modern level have bubbles and two lines, so it's less precise than just one line here. Here and here it's the same.
So it's level?
Yeah, it's level. So I can make the floor really flat. So I can see where is going to be the inside of the wall. We can
They aren't
use
using
that
400-year-old
compass.
microphones? Yeah,
So
maybe they are,
now
dude. How do you know?
I have to put more mortar over there.
And this is a material which is being used more and more now in construction, in restoration work. This is the material, of course, which would have been used in the Middle Ages to build a castle like this.
This is that quick lime thing. These are the bangers, guys. These guys bang.
So here we're just working on the last little part of the surface, and the tools always get smaller as we're working. So for instance, when we start off, we start with the chassis to take off the biggest amount of material, and then we can take off the bumps that are left behind with this tool, the broche. The masons give us the stones which are cut very quickly. It gives us the possibility to build a wall fast. But at a certain point, we use a line of realignment. So that the masons will build very quickly with rubber.
So I'll pause it here. They're gonna say it again here, and it's in plain English. But just, I feel like if I don't pause it, a lot of you won't notice. Do you see how this tower looks? Like it has like a ring here that's like super straight. And then from here to here, it's kind of like whatever. And then it has another ring that's super straight. And then it has the piece here that's whatever. And then these are kind of like in between. That's what he's talking about. It's kind of like doing things time efficient.
Rubble stone. It doesn't have a geometric form. They're working on the macro, the large scale. But when they're building these walls, at a certain point, it helps to have a line of realignment, a line to realign the wall. And the stones that we have cut, they all have a slight curve on the front, so that when we put them together, it gives the circumference of a tower.
Okay.
So the blocks will start out like, here we have a stone which is in its raw condition, that is directly taken out of the quarry. and then we
That's the first guy, with the big hammer.
start with a reference face. So we'll use our set square to find the next face. For our lines of realignment, we have 3 faces only. The face that is seen, the face where we pose the stone, and a face with the reference. All these stones are 7 inches high, and it's the inch of Guedelon. In the Middle Ages, every lord has their own inch.
Yes.
The most basic finish,
True.
it's called brochet, which is here. It looks pretty rough, but the benefit of this finish is that it's fast. And so we can build a line of realignment stone, which we have here. We can do it in half an hour. If we were to do the same stone with a layage, this tool here, it takes a lot more time. And so to arrive on this finish, it's 6 steps instead of 2. So it costs more of us. And so we use it in places such as the Lord's chambers, the stones which have a nicer finish.
The toilet.
Toilet.
It just goes down straight to the floor.
So this is the castle courtyard itself. Obviously it's not.
She said it goes straight to the floor. That's technically not how it works. They just don't currently have an active moat. Normally the toilet is like a hole in the ground. This is not in the video. This is just what I know. Normally the toilet is like a hole in one of the higher areas of the castle. And then you do your business and it kind of, rolls and drips along the castle wall and then lands in the moat. And the moat probably has a very flavorful aroma after a while.
Not finished yet, but it's starting to feel quite complete. We've got the chapel tower here. That was finished in 2019. And in fact, because we got the roof on, we've started a whole program of mural paintings inside the castle. And these paintings, they're all produced using paints which we make on site. We've got the North Range. So this is the building which houses the castle's Great Hall. And then the Great Tower. The Great Tower isn't finished yet. So this is the finished castle. So the main gate is protected by 2 towers forming the gatehouse. We have the chapel tower, we have the roof line of the North Range, and this is the Great Tower. Now the Great Tower has just over 2/3 of its final height. Today it's level with the roof line of the North Range. So there's still another 10 meters, another 30 feet at least.
There's still plenty to go on the castle, basically.
Well, I think we've got about 8 to 10 years, roughly, of building work still ahead of us. So it's going to take 35 years, more or less. We don't know exactly when the castle will be finished. 35 years to finish a castle is a really long time compared to medieval builders.
Oh, really?
Okay. I hate to do this, but her answer is very simplified. This is not a particularly big castle. 35 years for a castle of this size is a really long time. But I do believe there's documented castles that were built in much longer than 35 years.
Really?
Really long time. The reason that we're taking a lot longer is mainly because we spend a lot of time talking. We're here, of course, to explain our work. The techniques that we used 600, 700, 800 years ago. And these memories aren't so old. That's the strange thing. We still have some visitors, older visitors, who will remember the blacksmith in the village. It's less and less, but it does exist.
Basically what she's talking about, and this is the main part that I kind of wanted you guys to think about when we were watching this video, is this whole structure of society where you have like a blacksmith in every village. Like 1 in like 15 fucking people is a blacksmith. This whole thing. Okay? There are people alive today that remember when society was set up this way. Like my grandparents, like Ranya's grandfather lived in a rural area, and he literally lived in a village that was like this. So, people say the Industrial Revolution happened so and so, but it didn't just snap your fingers, happen in every single place, every city, every village, every rural area on Earth. Okay, shit like this in many parts of the world didn't happen until like 50 years ago, okay? There are people alive today, relatives of ours, who grew up in communities where every 1 in a dozen people had to be a blacksmith, and their grandchildren are like complaining that they don't know how to use their iPhone properly. Think of how insane that is. Okay.
Sometimes we're reviving almost forgotten techniques, but often then there's just a few generations away.
It's just like the Middle Ages and until just before World War II. So yeah, that's kind of what he's saying. In the rural parts, in the countryside, they made tools like this. There was a blacksmith in every village to make the tools. The edge is a bit yellow bronze. This means the metal has become softer. Well, some people watch on their phone, they can't read that. When I arrived, I had no interest in rock. I met a mason and he taught me to love it. The point is still in good shape. Basically, he made a good one. He's happy with it. What do you think of the work at Notre Dame? That's the big chapel in Paris. Because they need to know how to build things, their challenge was to redo it like the medieval builders. They had a big fire a few years ago. A few years ago, I think. They came here to learn to square off wood. He's going to show us what that is in a second. Because very few people today can square off wood with an axe. And they came here to learn to do it.
So this is where we prepare all the permanent wooden structures for the castle. And so the carpenters work in oak, and they use green oak. So that means that the wood is freshly felled. You don't leave the wood to season.
Again, this is probably not something that most people know, but you cannot build a proper house with this wood today. Because if you are using wood that is not dried for like 2 years or kiln dried, it is going to like move and warp and twist and all that fucking crap. Okay? The reason they're doing this with fresh wood is because you can't properly cut wood when it's completely dry. So that's why like the old buildings are, moving.
Fell the tree and then you work it rapidly, because green oak is like working butter. It's easy to work, whereas if you leave that to season, it's going to become just way too hard to use with the hand tools that we have available to us. So we're working in green oak and we're working in heart of oak. So this is the center of the tree. So the carpenter's job is to identify the center at both extremities of the piece of wood. And then they'll link them up. You can see here ochre, and that's because a line here soaked in ochre has been stretched. We can see it here. Has been stretched from one extremity to the other. And then by pulling that taut and then snapping the line, that gives you the line. So you've linked.
It's kind of like a giant elastic that is coated in a colored powder to leave a mark.
No tree grows dead straight. So you're always following the grain of the wood, and that means that the piece of wood that you're going to produce will be mechanically really strong. Now the next job is to remove the bark, and then the next stage is to cut notches into the wood. The tree would have been here, and then using axes, they've cut notches into the wood to this line each time, so they don't want to go any deeper. That's all the skill of using your axe to just cut to the line. And then once they've got the notches all the way along, they'll remove the wood between them. So that's going to give us a rough surface to work on. And then using a side axe or a broad axe,
Broadaxe.
they can then use that as a finishing tool. You can see here the lines left by the tools they've been using, and that will give us a really nice, smooth finish. So this is a
Basically,
side
it takes
axe
a
or a
shit
broad axe.
ton
You
of
can see
time.
it actually has a slightly off-center handle, and it has just one cutting edge, one
This is
beveled edge.
intentional. You'll
so
see
that
why.
means it can be really used to get a nice, flat finish to the beams.
See?
C'est fatigant de travailler comme ça toute la journée?
Non, on s'habitue.
Non?
Au début, c'est un peu dur, mais après, ça va.
Ouais.
Yeah. Jesus.
It takes a while, and obviously these guys, they're like athletes. Obviously when you start out, it's tiring for the muscles. But you know, these guys, they're used to it. It's about also using the right amount
Look,
of energy.
I don't know
not
how
wearing
used to
yourself out
this
in
you
the
can
process.
be. Okay. So this is like really skilled work, and there's a science in even figuring out all that. But like the laborers of that time, like a lot of medieval society was like serfdom, which is like plebs basically. And you know, you didn't pay them shit. You give them crappy food, whatever. These dudes died when they were like 30, 40 if they're lucky. So there's not really like a massive window in where you can be a skilled laborer and then not be dead. All right? There's only like a certain window there. So to build like castles and to do all this stuff as they did, it required like a literal human toll. They didn't die at 40. Okay, I'll tell you where I know that from. We went to... It was one of the castles in Scotland. I think it was Belmont. I'm not sure. We went to a Scottish castle with a tour guide, and the tour guide basically told us how it worked with all the servants of the castle. They basically slept in close to like a stable, lucky if they had hay or heat. Scotland isn't always warm. And there were pretty brutal conditions for living, and most servants of the household didn't make it past 40. So if they were bullshitting me, I don't know. But I didn't make that up.
So that all the transport on site is done by 4 cart horses. All the different materials, stone, wood, clay. Obviously, having cart horses means you need carts, and if you have carts, you need wheels. So we also have a wheelwright on site who's just getting ready tomorrow to circle some wheels. I think you shoe a wheel.
This is like fucking crazy.
This is the rim here, the
Happy birthday,
metallic
Sammy.
rim that's going to be applied to this wooden wheel. So basically a fire will be lit here on the ground, and then they'll lift the rim. That will be then placed in the fire and heated. We've got lots of different tools here for transporting hot metal, and then that will be applied to the wooden wheel. The wooden wheel will be kept really wet. And so as the hot metal touches the wood, the secret of course is to get it hot, but not so hot that it burns. You can see the marks here where it will be hammered onto the actual wheel. Here we have the rope maker's hut.
I don't really want to rewind, but I hope you guys saw just how precise every single part of that wheel was. Just to make that wheel to the point where you can maybe put a metal rim on it is like really incredible. Again, this is not buying like a big piece of wood from Home Depot. The guy just before was spending his days making flat surfaces out of trees.
The ropes that we make here are made either from flax or from hemp. Now, We might say that we're building a medieval castle, but we are protected by modern health and safety rules, which means you will see anachronisms on site. You've
They're cheating.
probably spotted a few already. So we have steel toe-cap shoes, hard hats, protective eyewear, masks, and the ropes that we make here we use on site, for example, around the workshops. But the rope that you saw on the lifting machine earlier, that's modern. That has a known breaking strain. Because you can make very strong rope from plants, but when you're using plants, you can never test the breaking strain of that rope before you use it. You can never be 100% sure it will hoist 600, 700, 800 pounds. So we take no chances. All the ropes that you see on the lifting machinery, they're modern. So we know.
So you haven't inherited the safety of the Middle Ages.
Exactly.
Right.
We are not here to collect data on the accident rate of 13th century construction sites.
So just a quick summary here. Basically, my understanding is they're using ropes of approximate strength of like the plant-based ropes that they were making at the time for castle building. But with plants, they say that you never really know how strong it's going to be. I think the more precise answer is that I think plant-based ropes get weathered out. Like if it rains a whole bunch, that rope is fucking useless. And that's why they're using like normal rope so people don't, well, die.
That's a good thing.
So over here is it's where you cook the bread. It's the cuisson de pain.
Regarde, tu vois, tu prends ça comme ça, tu le mets.
Dynamic tensile strength. Yep.
Wow.
Let's make some food. Easy. Yeah, dude. Bread's like $2 at the store. Let's go.
Allez, on y va?
Okay. All right. So the thing that he poured in there, we've skipped a number of stages. Rania told me this story from her grandfather, who did live in a more rural part of Greece, and they had to make their own bread from wheat, 70 years ago or whatever, 80 years ago. And the way that this was done is the village would collectively on the same day gather all its harvest, and they would tie a donkey to a pole that would have kind of like a metal, kind of like a reverse wedge, and it would kind of separate the the germ from the rest of the plant, more or less, but it would still be piled up in shit. So they would unload all of their harvest, the village harvest, and the donkey would go in circles and again, and this would go on for like a day or two. And then it had to be a windy day. And on a windy day, they would take a pitchfork and like aerate the crap left underneath, and the wind would blow the plant matter, but not the solid like wheat things that you make bread from. Okay. During this 3-day period, you needed the last day to be windy. And if it rained heavily on any of these 3 days, you didn't eat. So after you did all of that, then you get to where they are in this part here.
Tu vas voir que c'est plus facile. Allez, vas-y. Essaye. Il y a des moments que ça bloque, t'accélères quand c'est facile.
There's no subtitles. My understanding is he's telling her that she sucks at this.
It seems like everything moves at a very different pace here.
We're building in order to better understand, and then we want to share the results of our work, really so that people have a different understanding of their built heritage.
It's not finished, he says. You didn't make much flour. This is called civilized trash talking. The French are pretty good, But if you want some masterful shit, you got to go to the British for this stuff. If you want to make more, you have to work harder. All day with me. Basically, she made like no fucking flour.
So much work for so little.
We also should point out that wheat was the staple of civilization among similar grains across the earth. It is kind of the reason why we work together as a society. Generally, you're talking about refined, typically starchy plant-based food. So even though that whole donkey shit sounded ridiculous, even though that girl couldn't spin that rock for shit, and they made like no fucking food at the end, well, that's just kind of how it worked for several thousand years.
This is where Aurélie weaves wicker into baskets. The baskets that we use on site are the round handled baskets that you can just see on the floor of the workshop, and they're used to transport mortar, lime. The problem is, of course, that the lime in the mortar is corrosive, so she's constantly having to remake a stock of baskets. But these are of course much lighter, much easier to transport than heavy wooden buckets.
Vous avez appris cette
Ici, oui. Avec une transmission de notre ancien vannier.
From an old master who then retired, she learned this. However, the reason that looks like crap is because it is. She says she messed up. I will put them in water and wait 2 weeks, 10 days. I don't know if it's 2 weeks or 10 days. She is now leaving with a smile. That is a good effort, I guess. No baskets.
Nous, on l'expérimente tous les jours. C'est pas
We
facile
experiment
de
every
construire un
day.
château.
It's not easy to build a castle. It's exciting, but not easy.
exaltant, et c'est pas facile. Faut faire avec les aléas
You have to
climatiques.
work with the weather.
Aujourd'hui, il fait bon.
Today it's nice.
agréable
It's
d'être
nice to be
dehors.
outside.
Demain, il va peut-être faire 40
Tomorrow
degrés.
it could be really hot,
et
and the next
après-demain,
day
il va
it could
peut-être
rain.
pleuvoir. C'est pas grave, le chantier, c'est
It
pas ça
doesn't
qui
matter,
arrête.
the work doesn't stop.
On se plie au rythme
We
des
adjust to
saisons,
the rhythm of the
mais
seasons,
on s'arrête jamais totalement non plus.
but we never stop
Et s'il pleut
completely.
beaucoup, on travaillera moins, mais on travaillera quand même un peu.
Like, look at this thing, dude. So he's got like 2 fabric sacks in a material that can intake air at a certain speed, but can compress it enough to push air into a forge. 2 of them in like a slinky thing, and you're constantly doing this thing.
C'est une immense fierté.
There's so much
Pouvoir
pride
dire,
to
un
be
petit
able to
bout du
say,
château fort,
there's
c'est
a
moi
small
qui l'ai
piece
fait.
of the castle that I made.
Tous les bâtisseurs qui sont
All
venus
the
ici,
builders who have come
ils
here
ont tous un petit
all
bout
have
du
a small
château
piece of this
qui leur est
castle
cher.
they cherish.
C'est parce que c'est eux
Because
qui ont
they
fait
are
ce
the
joint,
ones
c'est
who
eux
made
qui
the
ont mis ce
joint
caillou,
or the stone,
c'est eux qui ont installé ce
or
morceau de
installed a
bois.
piece of wood.
C'est normal.
This
C'est
is
pour
why
ça
the
que le
castle
château,
belongs
il
to
appartient à
thousands
des
of people.
milliers de personnes. Des milliers de personnes,
For
de cœur et un
4,000
petit
of
bout du
people.
château qui est à eux, tout
There's a
simplement.
small piece of the castle that is theirs. There you go. So that's Kirsten Dirksen on YouTube. I'll give you guys a link to the video if you want to watch it again or missed any piece of it, or you just want to subscribe, and it's easy. But yeah, isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting how most of the methods showcased in that video were relevant to society in its different structure within a generation of people that is still alive today. And here we are, you know, playing video games on the internet, people watching from thousands of miles away. And, you know, we complain that, oh, this ad didn't play very well or it was too loud. You know, it's insane. It's insane how much technology has changed people's life. It's really the most important thing for like our species, that technology can put us to a point where we have ease of life. You know, our people is like several 100,000 years old, maybe a little bit less. That's, you know, still debated. But up until literally like us and maybe our parents, it was a constant struggle to create food and not starve and have like a fucking blanket to stop the rain, right? So it is pretty interesting. I think it's really important to see the relevance of it today. And, you know, I wanted to show you guys a video today because we talked a lot about like social things and all that kind of stuff. And it's not really political. Some people make it political and stuff, but, you know, working together, sharing technology, the goal of all of that is really to free people from having to do like hard labor or spend all of their existence making half a castle before they die, or just crazy shit like that, right? Technology has moved at such a crazy speed in the last few decades to a point where it is actually reasonable to assume that we can live and not have to work as hard as we have had. The truth is that people usually work harder than they have a few decades ago, and that doesn't really make any sense because technology has moved forward so much. So, you know, something to think about. You like turtles? Me too, man.